Why do two people earning the exact same salary end up in completely different financial lives 20 years later? One is still living paycheck to paycheck, refreshing his bank app at midnight, praying the rent doesn't bounce. The other one owns his home outright, has six figures sitting quietly in index funds, and barely thinks about money at all anymore. Same income, same job title, same city even. So what actually separated them? It wasn't a lucky stock pick. It wasn't an inheritance. It wasn't some secret side hustle that made him rich overnight. The answer is smaller than that, and honestly a little unsatisfying, because it means there's no shortcut waiting for you at the end of this video. What separated them was a set of quiet, almost boring habits, repeated so many times they stopped looking like decisions and started looking like personality. And that's really what this video is about. Not just 7 habits. It's about how identity, not income, is the real engine of wealth. Keep that question in your head as we go. If two people with the same paycheck can end up worlds apart, what does that tell you about what money actually is? We're going to come back to that. Here's the first habit, and it's the one almost nobody wants to hear. Wealthy people pay themselves first. Picture your paycheck landing in your account. For most people, that money immediately starts leaking out in 100 directions. Rent, groceries, a subscription you forgot about, a coffee here, an impulse buy there, and by the time the month ends, whatever's left over, if anything, gets tossed into savings like an afterthought. That's backwards. The people who quietly build wealth flip the order. The moment money lands, a slice of it, maybe 10%, maybe 15%, gets pulled out immediately and moved somewhere it can't be casually spent. A savings account, a retirement fund, a brokerage account, before a single bill gets paid. It feels almost reckless the first time you do it, like you're gambling with your own rent money. But here's the truth hiding underneath that discomfort. You will always find a way to survive on what's left, because that's what humans do. Give yourself less to spend and your spending shrinks to match it, almost like water finding its level. Give yourself more and it expands to fill every inch of the space you hand it. That single reordering, paying your future self before you pay anyone else, is responsible for more quiet millionaires than any investment strategy you'll ever hear about on this channel. But here's where it gets interesting, because saving money is only half the equation, and it's actually the easier half. The second habit is where a lot of disciplined savers accidentally sabotage themselves. They save diligently for years and then let that money sit in a regular savings account earning next to nothing, watching inflation quietly eat away at it like termites in a wall you can't see. Wealthy people don't just save, they put that money to work. Think about it like this. Cash sitting in a checking account is a soldier standing at attention doing nothing. Money sitting in a low-fee index fund is that same soldier out working a shift. And while you sleep, while you're at your kid's soccer game, while you're on vacation not thinking about money at all, it's earning more money. This is the part school never taught you, and it's genuinely strange when you sit with it. $1 invested at a historical stock market average of around 7 to 10% a year doesn't just sit there. It roughly doubles every 7 to 10 years if you leave it alone. That means the dollar you invest at 25 could become $2 by your mid-30s, $4 by your mid-40s, $8 by your mid-50s, without you lifting another finger. Compound growth is slow and almost invisible at the start, which is exactly why most people give up on it too early. It looks like nothing is happening for years. Then one day it looks like everything happened all at once. That's not luck. That's math, quietly working in the background the entire time you thought nothing was going on. Now here's the third habit, and this one is uncomfortable because it means looking directly at something most people avoid. They track every single dollar. Not obsessively, not with guilt, just with awareness. Picture your financial life as a house with a slow leak somewhere in the plumbing. You can't see the leak, but every month the water bill creeps up a little, and you shrug it off because no single month feels dramatic. That's what unexamined spending does to your bank account. It's rarely one huge purchase that wrecks people financially. It's the $12 app subscription you forgot to cancel 2 years ago. It's the food delivery fees that quietly add up to more than a car payment. It's the impulse buys that feel like nothing in the moment but bleed you dry in aggregate. Wealthy people aren't smarter about money in some mystical way. They just look at the numbers. They know what's coming in, they know what's going out, and because they know it, they can direct it instead of being dragged along by it. There's a strange kind of relief that comes from actually looking at your spending instead of avoiding it. The same relief you'd feel finally checking a weird noise in your car instead of turning the radio up louder to drown it out. The number was never going to be as scary as the anxiety of not knowing. And this is the part most people miss entirely, so listen closely, because this is where the whole video starts to click into place. The fourth habit is that wealthy people treat debt like fire. Useful when it's controlled, absolutely devastating when it isn't. Not all debt is created equal, and lumping it all together is one of the most expensive mistakes you can make. A mortgage on a home that's appreciating, or a loan that helped you build a business, that's fire contained in a fireplace, warming the house, cooking the food, doing something for you. Credit card debt sitting at 20-something% interest, compounding month after month while you make minimum payments, that's fire. That's jumped the fireplace and is now eating the walls. Here's the sensory version of this, because numbers alone don't make it feel real. Imagine every dollar of high-interest debt as a tiny, invisible weight strapped to your ankle. $1, you'd barely notice. But debt compounds, so that weight doesn't stay $1, it grows on its own, silently, while you sleep, the exact same mechanism that made your investments grow. Just running in reverse and working against you instead of for you. People who quietly build wealth aren't necessarily debt-free. Some of them use debt strategically their whole lives, but they are ruthless about killing the fast-growing, high-interest kind before it gets the chance to compound against them the way their investments compound for them. Here's the fifth habit, and this one is about identity more than arithmetic. Wealthy people are boring about their lifestyle, on purpose, and they don't apologize for it. This is the habit that explains the two people from the beginning of this video, the ones with the same paycheck and completely different lives 20 years later. Picture a coworker who gets a raise and immediately upgrades everything, a nicer car, a bigger apartment, new furniture to match. It feels like progress. It looks like success from the outside. But financially, that person is standing still, or worse, moving backward, because their expenses grew exactly as fast as their income did, which means the gap between what they earn and what they keep never widened, not even a little. Now picture someone who gets that same raise and changes nothing about how they live, at least not right away. The gap between their income and their expenses just got wider, and that gap is the only thing that actually builds wealth, not the size of your paycheck, the distance between your paycheck and your spending. This is why you'll meet people earning $80,000 a year who are quietly worth $500,000, and people earning $300,000 a year who are one missed paycheck away from disaster. Income tells you how much water is flowing into the bucket. It tells you nothing about whether the bucket has a hole in the bottom. The sixth habit is one people underestimate because it doesn't feel like a money habit at all. It feels like a life philosophy, and that's exactly the point. Wealthy people invest in their own earning ability the same way they invest in the market, deliberately and repeatedly. Think of your income as a tree. Most people spend all their energy picking fruit off the branches, spending everything they earn as fast as it comes in. But some people spend a portion of their time and money watering the roots instead, taking a course, learning a skill that makes them more valuable, building a small side project, reading something that sharpens how they think about their industry. The fruit picking feels more immediate and more satisfying in the moment. The root watering is boring and slow and doesn't pay off for months, sometimes years. But a tree with strong roots eventually produces more fruit than you could ever pick off a tree that's been stripped bare every season with nothing reinvested into it. This is why so many quietly wealthy people had multiple income streams before it was trendy to talk about it online. Not because they were chasing hustle culture, but because they understood early that your ability to earn is itself an asset, maybe the most important one you own, and assets are things you're supposed to grow, not just spend down. Now, the seventh habit, and this is the one that ties every single thing we've talked about together, so pay attention. Wealthy people think in decades, not in weekends. Every single habit we've covered, paying yourself first, investing instead of hoarding cash, tracking your spending, controlling debt, keeping your lifestyle smaller than your income, reinvesting in your own skills, all of it requires a strange kind of patience that goes against almost everything your brain naturally wants. Your brain is wired to want the reward now. A pizza tonight feels better than a retirement account you won't touch for 30 years. A new pair of shoes this weekend feels better than an extra $100 sitting invisibly in an index fund. This is not a character flaw, it's just how humans are built. We evolved to prioritize immediate survival over abstract future benefit. But the people who quietly become wealthy have trained themselves, deliberately, to override that instinct just often enough for it to matter. Not perfectly, not every single day. They still buy the coffee, they still take the vacation. But when it comes to the big decisions, the ones that actually move the needle, they default to thinking about who they're building for 20 years from now, not just who they are this Friday night. Let's slow down for a second on that idea, because it explains something else people get wrong about wealth. They picture it as an event. The day the numbers finally line up, the day the account hits some milestone, the day they can finally exhale. But nobody who actually lives this way describes it that way. Ask someone who quietly built real wealth over 20 years what the moment felt like, and most of them will tell you there wasn't one. There was no single Tuesday where they crossed a finish line and everything changed. There was just a slow accumulation of unremarkable Tuesdays, the same modest transfer into savings, the same decision to skip the upgrade, the same 15 minutes spent looking at where the money actually went instead of guessing, repeated so many times that the results eventually became too large to ignore. It's the financial version of watching a tree grow. You can stand in front of it every single day and swear it looks exactly the same as yesterday. Come back in 15 years and it's unrecognizable. And yet nothing dramatic ever happened on any single day in between. That's the part that trips people up, because we're wired to look for the dramatic day, the lucky break, the turning point. And when we don't see one, we assume the whole thing must not be working. Meanwhile, it's working exactly as intended, quietly, underneath the surface, the entire time. And here's the aha moment, the thing this whole video has actually been circling around from the very first sentence. Remember the question we opened with? Two people, same paycheck, wildly different outcomes 20 years later. You probably assumed this video was going to hand you a formula, a percentage to save, a fund to invest in, a specific number that unlocks the door. But look back at everything we just covered. Every single habit on this list is available to almost anyone with a steady paycheck, right now, today, for free. The real difference between those two people was never their income. It was never even really their knowledge, because most of this information isn't secret. You've probably heard some version of every single one of these ideas before in your life. The real difference is that one of them turned these habits into identity, into just who they are, the automatic way they move through the world, while the other one kept treating them as optional advice to get around to someday. Wealth isn't a number you hit, it's a person you slowly become, one boring, repeated decision at a time, made so many times it stops requiring willpower at all. So if you take one thing from this video, let it be this. You don't need a bigger paycheck to start becoming that person. You need to start paying yourself first this month, not someday. You need to let your money work while you sleep instead of sitting frozen in a low-interest account doing nothing. You need to look directly at where your money actually goes instead of flinching away from it. You need to treat high-interest debt like the fire it is. You need to let the gap between your income and your spending widen instead of closing it every time you get a raise. You need to water your own roots, not just pick your own fruit. And you need to start thinking in decades, because the version of you 20 years from now is either going to thank you for starting today or wonder why you waited. The habits are simple. That was never the hard part. The hard part is doing the simple thing over and over until it quietly becomes who you are. If this helped you see money a little differently, hit like and subscribe for more.